The observation deck of the Galactic Research Station Kepler 7 hummed with the usual sounds of advanced alien technology. Screens flickered with data streams, analyzing every creature on the planet below. Commander Zilf, a towering Kryn with 4 arms and crystalline skin that reflected the station's blue lighting, stood at the center console reviewing the day's findings. His species had spent 3 centuries cataloging dangerous fauna across the galaxy, and this particular world had caught their attention 6 months ago. The planet, designated as Terra by its native inhabitants, was unlike anything the galactic community had encountered. It wasn't the technology that concerned them. The humans were primitive by galactic standards, barely beginning to explore their own solar system. What terrified the Council of Civilized Worlds was the ecosystem itself. Zilfa's junior officer, a small reptilian Vex named KRRN, scurried over with a datapad clutched in her clawed hands. Her scales rippled with nervous patterns, shifting from green to yellow in distress. "Commander, we have a situation in Observation Zone 7, KRRN said, her voice clicking through the universal translator. "A human settlement near the forest border. One of the apex predators has been spotted moving toward inhabited structures." Zilf felt his internal temperature drop. In all his years studying death worlds, Terra held a special classification in his fear centers. The predators here didn't just hunt for food. They hunted for sport, for territory, for reasons that seemed to defy evolutionary logic. Worse, they hunted in packs, alone, from ambush, in open charges from the water, from the trees, and even from beneath the ground. "Which predator type?" Zilf asked, already pulling up the visual feed on the main screen. "The data matches a juvenile Panthera tigris," KRRN replied, her scales now flashing orange with alarm. "Weight approximately 90 kilograms. The humans call them tigers." The main screen filled with an image that made every being on the observation deck freeze. A young tiger, its orange and black stripes rippling over powerful muscles, padded through the trees at the forest's edge. Even at this juvenile stage, the creature's movements spoke of efficient killing potential. Its paws, larger than a human head, pressed silently into the soil. Teeth designed to crush bone gleamed white when it yawned. "Alert the human authorities," Zilf commanded. "They need to evacuate the settlement immediately." "Sir, we cannot interfere with pre-contact civilizations," another officer reminded him. A plink, whose gaseous form floated inside a containment suit, drifted closer. "Protocole forbid direct intervention." Zilfa's frustration manifested as a harsh grating sound from his vocal chamber. The plink was correct. The galactic community observed strict, non-interference policies with primitive species. Humanity didn't even know aliens existed yet. The research station orbited beyond their detection capabilities, studying from a distance. "Then, we observe and document," Zilf said, though the words tasted of failure. "Record everything. If we cannot save them, we can at least learn from their deaths. Perhaps the data will help us understand how anything survives on this nightmare planet." The tiger cub continued its approach. On the settlement's edge, a structure made of wood and crude metal stood alone. Smoke rose from a chimney, indicating occupation. The building's thermal signature showed a single human inside, unaware of the approaching predator. KRRN manipulated the controls, zooming the visual feed closer. The settlement itself was small, perhaps 20 structures in total. Humans moved between buildings, completely oblivious to the danger. Some of the smaller humans, juveniles, played in an open area. They ran and shouted, their voices carrying on the wind. "The noise may attract the predator," observed a Thran officer, its multiple eye stalks focusing on different screens simultaneously. "Young prey animals making distress calls. The tiger will likely alter course toward them." But the tiger didn't change direction. It continued toward the isolated structure, moving with purpose rather than the random wandering of a lost juvenile. Something had drawn its attention specifically to that location. Zilf enhanced the audio receptors, filtering out ambient noise. Through the advanced sensors, he could hear the sound from inside the human dwelling. A rhythmic thumping metal striking metal. The human was working on something, creating noise and vibrations that apparently carried through the ground. "Foolish creatures," muttered the Plink officer. "They build their nests right next to hunting grounds and then announce their presence to every predator in the region." The tiger reached the edge of the clearing around the structure. It paused, lowering its body into the tall grass. The observation deck fell silent as every being watched the predator assess its approach. This was textbook hunting behavior. The tiger was young, but instinct guided its actions. It would wait for the right moment, then charge. Against a human, alone and unsuspecting, the outcome was inevitable. "The human is male," KRRN reported, analyzing the biometric data. "Approximate age 30 solar cycles. Physical condition appears adequate for his species, though humans are notably weak compared to most sentient races." Zilf knew this well. Humans were soft-skinned, easily wounded, with no natural armor or weapons. They couldn't run exceptionally fast, couldn't climb as well as many species, and lacked the sensory capabilities to detect approaching predators. By every measurable standard, humans should have been extinct long ago on a world this hostile. Yet somehow, they weren't just surviving. They were thriving, multiplying, spreading across every environment on their planet. That paradox kept the galactic community's greatest minds puzzled and concerned in equal measure. The door to the human structure opened. Zilfa's crystal skin flickered with anticipation as the human emerged. He was tall for his species, with dark skin and hair. He wore simple clothing, primitive woven fabrics, and carried tools in his hands. His attention focused on something in his grasp, not on his surroundings. "He's completely unaware," KRRN whispered. "The predator is 15 meters away." The tiger's muscles bunched. Its haunches raised slightly. Every being on the observation deck recognized the preparation for a pounce. In seconds, the human would be under attack, those massive paws bearing him to the ground, those teeth seeking his throat. The human looked up from his tools. His head turned, scanning the area with those forward-facing predator eyes that humans possessed. For a moment, Zilf thought perhaps the human's instincts had triggered, some primitive warning system alerting him to danger. Then the human smiled. His mouth opened, and he made a sound. The sound that emerged from the human wasn't a scream of fear or a shout of alarm. It was a whistle, two tones rising and falling in a specific pattern. Musical, deliberate. The audio sensors captured it clearly, and the computer attempted to analyze its meaning. The tiger's ears swiveled forward. The massive predator's body relaxed from its hunting crouch, and then, to the absolute horror of every being watching from orbit, the tiger cub stood up and walked directly toward the human. "No," Zilf breathed. "It's going to attack. Why isn't he running?" But the human didn't run. He crouched down, setting his tools aside, and extended his arms outward. The gesture was universal among many species as a sign of peaceful intent, showing empty hands, no weapons. But against a predator of this caliber, it was suicide. The tiger closed the distance in seconds. It approached the human directly, face to face, close enough that one swipe of those clawed paws would disembowel him. Close enough that Zilf could see the human's expression clearly on the enhanced video feed. He was still smiling. His eyes showed no fear, no panic. Instead, there was something else in his expression. Recognition, affection, joy. The tiger made a sound, a deep rumbling that the computer identified as a purr, though exponentially louder than the domestic felines humanity had apparently domesticated. The massive predator rubbed its head against the human's chest, nearly knocking him backward with the force of the affectionate gesture. The human laughed. The sound of his laughter echoed through the audio feed as he wrapped his arms around the tiger's neck and pressed his face against its fur. His hands moved over the predator's body in stroking motions, and the tiger's purring intensified. "This is impossible," the Thran officer stated. "Our data clearly classifies tigers as apex predators, solitary hunters, aggressive and territorial. They kill prey much larger than humans. This behavior contradicts every behavioral model we have. KRRN pulled up historical data, her claws flying over the controls. Commander, I'm reviewing our previous observations of this human settlement. Sir, this isn't the first time we've recorded this interaction. Additional screens flickered to life, showing archived footage. The same human weeks earlier at the forest edge. The tiger cub, smaller than, approaching cautiously. The human offering food from his hands. The tiger accepting it. Another clip showed the human sitting on the ground while the tiger slept beside him, its massive head resting on the human's lap. How long has this been occurring? Zilth demanded. Based on our records, approximately 4 months, KRRN replied. The human appears to have established a relationship with the predator when it was even younger. The pattern repeats every few days. The tiger comes to this location. The human emerges. They interact peacefully. On the main screen, the human was now sitting on the ground, and the tiger had sprawled beside him, rolling onto its back. The human rubbed the creature's belly, and the tiger's paws batted playfully at his arms. Those same paws that could shatter bones were moving with careful restraint, claws retracted. Play behavior, observed the plink. We're witnessing play behavior between a human and an apex predator. This is unprecedented. Zilth watched in fascination as the human produced something from his clothing. Food of some kind, meat, which he offered to the tiger. The predator accepted it delicately, taking the offering without nipping the human's fingers. Then, the human pulled out more food and ate it himself, sitting companionably beside the creature that should have been eating him. They're sharing a meal, KRRN said, her scales now cycling through confused purple patterns. The predator is not showing any aggression. Its body language indicates comfort. Trust. The human shows no fear responses. His heart rate is elevated slightly, but within normal range for positive excitement rather than terror. Another human emerged from a nearby structure, an older female. She called out something in the human language. The male human responded, waving at her. The female approached, and Zilth expected her to show alarm at the tiger's presence. Instead, she carried something in her hands. As she drew closer, the thermal imaging revealed it was food, still warm. She set it down near the human male, and the tiger said something that made the male laugh, then walked away with one last glance at the predator. The other humans know about this, the Thran officer said. This isn't a secret. The entire settlement must be aware that this human has befriended a tiger cub. Befriended, Zilth repeated the word slowly. Is that what we're calling this? A friendship between prey and predator? What else could it be, Commander? KRRN asked. The relationship shows reciprocal positive interaction. The tiger seeks out the human. The human welcomes the tiger. They engage in social bonding activities. By definition, this appears to be friendship. Zilth had studied hundreds of species across dozens of worlds. He had seen symbiotic relationships, parasitic bonds, and complex social structures. He had witnessed animals from different species cooperating for mutual benefit. But he had never seen anything like this. On Terra, predators killed prey. That was the fundamental rule of life. Yet here was a human, one of the softest and most vulnerable creatures on this death world, forming a social bond with something that was biologically designed to kill him. Continue observations, Zilth ordered. I want every interaction documented. Behavioral analysis. Stress indicators. Everything. If humans have somehow developed the ability to pacify apex predators, the galactic community needs to understand how. As the hours passed, the observation team watched the human and tiger interact. They played games, the tiger chasing objects the human threw, bringing them back like a domesticated animal. The human groomed the tiger, removing burrs from its fur. At one point, the human laid down in the grass, and the tiger curled around him protectively, both of them resting in the afternoon sun. The tiger is exhibiting protective behavior, KRRN noted. When that flying creature approached, the tiger raised its head and growled. It's guarding the human. From what? Asked the plink. The human is the one who should need protection from the tiger. Perhaps that's our misunderstanding, Zilth said slowly. We've been classifying the relationship incorrectly. We assumed the tiger was the threat to the human. But what if, from the tiger's perspective, everything else is a threat, and the human is the one creature it considers safe? The implications of that statement rippled through the observation deck. If true, it meant humans had somehow convinced one of Terra's apex predators that they were not prey. More than that, they had convinced it that humans were worthy of protection. As the sun began to set on the planet below, the human stood and stretched. He made that same whistling sound, 2 tones, and the tiger rose as well. The human pointed toward the forest, speaking in his language. The tiger rubbed against him one final time, then turned and padded back into the trees. The human watched until the tiger disappeared into the shadows, then gathered his tools and returned to his structure. The door closed, and lights appeared in the windows as the human settled in for the night. File this under priority research, Zilf commanded. Category: Human behavioral anomalies. Subcategory: Interspecies bond formation. I want analysis from the Xenopsychology department by morning. As the night cycle began on the station, Zilf remained at his post, reviewing the footage again and again. Somewhere in those images was the answer to a question that suddenly seemed more important than any other. If humans could befriend their planet's apex predators, what would they do when they finally reached the stars and encountered the galaxy's truly dangerous species? The thought kept Zilf awake long into the night cycle, his crystalline skin flickering with patterns of concern that he couldn't quite name. The Xenopsychology report arrived on Zilf's console exactly 8 hours after he had requested it. Dr. Milvis, a cerebrin whose entire species existed as interconnected neural networks within crystalline matrices, had prepared a detailed analysis that only deepened the mystery rather than solving it. Zilf read through the findings while his second-shift crew monitored the human settlement below. The tiger cub had not returned yet, but it was early morning on the surface. According to the pattern they had documented, the predator typically appeared in the late afternoon. The report concluded that the human exhibited no signs of mental illness or impairment. His behavior, while unusual by galactic standards, fell within normal parameters for his species. More disturbing was the psychological profile Dr. Milvis had constructed. The human showed traits common among pack-bonding species, specifically the ability to form emotional attachments outside his biological family group. But humans took it to an extreme that made even other pack-bonding species uncomfortable. The report included references to historical observations from Terra. Humans formed emotional bonds with virtually anything. Other humans regardless of genetic relation. Different species of animals. Plants. Inanimate objects. There were documented cases of humans forming attachments to rocks, machines, and even abstract concepts. They anthropomorphize everything, the report stated. Humans project personality, emotion, and conscious intent onto objects and creatures that possess none of these qualities. This tendency appears hardwired into their neural structure. The survival advantage of this trait is unclear, but the result is a species capable of forming social bonds across any boundary. Zil set down the datapad and rubbed his face with 2 of his forehands. In all his years studying alien species, he had never encountered anything quite so unsettling. Most intelligent species formed bonds within strict parameters. Family groups, tribal connections, sometimes, in rare cases, cross-species partnerships based on mutual benefit. But humans seem to look at the universe and see friends everywhere, even in creatures actively trying to kill them. KRRN arrived for her shift, her scales bright green with excitement. She carried a portable data unit that she connected to the main console. "Commander, I spent my rest period reviewing historical human broadcasts," she said. "The humans have primitive entertainment transmissions that they call television and internet. I filtered through thousands of hours of content. Sir, the relationship we observed is not unique." The main screen split into multiple feeds showing archived human media. Zilf watched in growing disbelief as humans interacted with dozens of species that should have been deadly to them. Humans swimming with great white sharks. Handling venomous snarkis. A human lying in a field while a massive elephant stood over him, its trunk gently touching his face. Another human playing with a crocodile, his hands inside the creature's mouth. These are entertainment? Zilf asked. They record themselves courting death and share it with others. It appears to be a point of pride, KRRN explained. Humans who successfully interact with dangerous animals achieve social status. They call themselves animal handlers, wildlife experts, conservationists. Their society rewards this behavior. One clip showed a human female sitting calmly while lions approach her. The massive predators, each one capable of killing her in seconds, instead rubbed against her like domestic pets. She laughed and stroked their manes completely at ease. "How is this possible?" asked the Thren officer on duty. "Every predator-prey model we have suggests this should fail catastrophically. The predators should attack. The humans should die. Yet here they are, repeatedly, successfully interacting with apex predators." "I have a theory," KRRN said hesitantly. "It may sound far-fetched, but the data supports it. I believe humans are predators themselves." Silence filled the observation deck. Then, nervous laughter rippled through several species. The idea was absurd. Humans were weak, slow, poorly defended. They had none of the physical characteristics of predators. But KRRN pressed on, calling up anatomical data on the screens. "Look at the evidence. Forward-facing eyes designed for depth perception and tracking moving prey. Omnivorous dentition, including tearing teeth. Persistence, hunting capability. They can run for hours, tracking prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They sweat for thermal regulation, allowing sustained exertion that would kill most species." She pulled up more data. "Their throwing ability is unmatched in the animal kingdom. They can kill from a distance with projectiles. Their intelligence allows for complex tool creation, weapons, traps, coordinated pack hunting strategies. But they're so fragile," the Thren protested. "No natural armor, no clothes, no venom. Because they don't need them," Zilf said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn. "They outsourced their weapons to tools. They didn't need to evolve physical adaptations because they evolved intelligence instead. And if humans are predators themselves, then perhaps the tiger recognizes something familiar. Not prey, not threat, but equal." The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. The galactic community had classified humanity as a primitive prey species on a death world, assuming they survived through luck and hiding. But if humans were actually persistence predators with tool-using intelligence, everything changed. "Pull up territorial maps," Zilf ordered. "Show me the distribution of apex predators on Terra versus human settlements." The holographic display shifted to show a planetary map. Red zones indicated apex predator territories. Blue zones showed human population centers. Zilf expected to see careful separation, humans avoiding the dangerous areas. Instead, the colors overlapped everywhere. Humans lived in tiger territories, bear territories, lion territories, crocodile territories. They didn't avoid the predators. They lived right alongside them. "Now show me extinction rates," Zilf said quietly. The data made his internal temperature spike. Over the past 2,000 years, as human population expanded, dozens of species had gone extinct. But not from being hunted to extinction, as predators typically eliminated prey. These extinctions came from habitat loss, climate changes, and something the humans called pollution. The predators that survived did so because humans decided they should survive. There were programs, initiatives, protected zones. Humans expended enormous resources keeping predator species alive, even when those same predators occasionally killed humans. "They're protecting their predators," the Thren said in disbelief. "They're not in competition with them. They're not prey hiding from them. They're actively working to preserve them. Because humans see them as valuable," KRRN said. "Not as threats." as connections, as friends, as part of their world worth saving. Movement on the primary observation screen drew their attention. On the surface, the human male had emerged from his structure. Morning sunlight caught on his dark skin as he stretched and looked toward the forest. He was earlier than usual, and the tiger typically didn't appear until afternoon. But today, something was different. The audio sensors picked up sounds from the forest. Not the normal ambient noise of birds and insects. These were distress calls. High-pitched, urgent. The computer identified them as tiger vocalizations, juvenile age range, indicating fear or pain. The human's head snapped toward the sounds. His entire body language changed instantly. The relaxed posture vanished, replaced by alert tension. He ran back into his structure and emerged moments later carrying objects that the scanner identified as primitive medical supplies and tools. Then he ran toward the forest, toward the sounds of the distressed predator, toward danger. "Is he insane?" the Plink officer exclaimed. "Those vocalizations indicate threat. The tiger is in danger, which means something dangerous enough to threaten a tiger is in those trees. And he's running toward it." Zilf was already adjusting sensors to follow the human's movement through the forest. The human moved with surprising efficiency, avoiding obstacles, following the sounds with focused determination. His breathing was elevated but controlled. His movements were purposeful. The human was hunting the thing that threatened his tiger. "Give me thermal imaging," Zilf commanded. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The forest canopy made imaging difficult, but the advanced sensors eventually revealed multiple heat signatures. The tiger cub, clearly visible near the base of a large tree, and surrounding it for other signatures. Larger, moving in a pattern that suggested pack coordination. Canis lupus, KR unidentified. Wolves, a hunting pack. They've cornered the tiger cub. Wolves and tigers were both apex predators in their respective niches, but a lone juvenile tiger against 4 adult wolves was a losing situation. The wolves were testing it, darting in and out looking for an opening. The tiger was backed against the tree, swiping when it got too close, but it was only a matter of time. The human crashed through the undergrowth into the clearing. The wolves spun toward the new arrival, assessing this unexpected factor. For a moment, the forest was silent except for heavy breathing and the rustle of leaves. The human raised his arms above his head, making himself appear larger. Then he made a sound that the audio sensors captured, but the universal translator struggled to process. It was loud, aggressive, primal. Not words. Pure vocalization designed to intimidate. The human was challenging the wolf pack. Alone, armed only with the tools in his hands and his own voice. One wolf took a step forward, ears back, teeth bared. The human stomped his foot hard against the ground, creating a sharp sound, and made that aggressive vocalization again. Louder this time. The wolf hesitated. "The wolves are confused," KRRN narrated, watching the predator behavior analysis scroll across her screen. "They don't recognize the human as prey. His behavior is too aggressive. But they don't recognize him as a competing predator either. He's triggering their uncertainty responses." The alpha wolf, identified by size and position, growled deep and long. It was a warning, a challenge. The human responded by taking a step forward, not back. He raised one of his tools, something made of metal that caught the sunlight. He struck it against a tree, creating a loud, ringing sound. The wolves flinched. The unexpected noise in the tense standoff was enough to break their formation. The alpha took a step back. Then another. The pack's cohesion wavered. The human didn't press his advantage. He didn't chase them. Instead, he positioned himself between the wolves and the tiger cub, maintaining his aggressive posture but not attacking. He was giving them an out, a chance to leave without confrontation. The alpha wolf made the calculation. 4 against 1 should be favorable odds, but this strange creature showed no fear. It made disturbing noises and seemed willing to fight. And wolves, for all their predatory skill, preferred certain victories over risky confrontations. The alpha turned and trotted into the forest. The pack followed, disappearing into the undergrowth. Their thermal signatures moved away, seeking easier prey elsewhere. The moment the wolves were gone, the human's entire demeanor changed again. The aggressive posture vanished. He turned to the tiger cub, lowering himself to the ground, making himself smaller, less threatening. He spoke in soft tones, words the translator rendered as meaningless syllables, but the tone unmistakably gentle. The tiger cub limped toward him. One of its legs showed signs of injury, blood matting the fur. The human carefully examined the wound, his movements slow and deliberate. The tiger allowed the inspection, even when the human's touches must have caused pain. "He's treating the injury," Zilf said unnecessarily. Everyone could see the human cleaning the wound, applying some kind of substance from his medical supplies, wrapping the leg with cloth. The tiger endured the treatment, making soft sounds that the computer identified as comfort vocalizations. When the human finished, the tiger pressed its massive head against the human's chest. The human wrapped his arms around it, holding the predator close, rocking slightly in a motion that appeared instinctive. "Pack bonding behavior," KRRN whispered. "He's comforting it, treating it like family." The human eventually helped the tiger to its feet. The predator put weight on the injured leg gingerly, but could walk. The human supported it, moving slowly, and together they made their way back toward the settlement. When they emerged from the forest, other humans had gathered, apparently alerted by someone who heard the commotion. Instead of panic at seeing the tiger, they showed concern. An older male human approached with more medical supplies. A female brought food and water. The humans worked together to create a comfortable space for the tiger in the shade of a building. They brought soft materials for it to lie on. They brought more food. Children watched from a careful distance, their parents keeping them back, but their expressions showed fascination rather than fear. "They're adopting it," the Thran officer said. "The entire settlement is treating this apex predator as a community member." Over the following hours, the observation team watched as various humans took turns sitting with the tiger. They kept it company, brought it offerings, and generally treated it like an injured family member rather than a dangerous wild animal. The human male who had rescued it barely left its side. He sat with the tiger's head in his lap, stroking its fur, speaking softly. When the tiger slept, he remained alert, watching the forest edge as if standing guard. "He's protecting the predator," Zilf said, "from other predators." The roles have completely reversed. A chime indicated an incoming communication. Zilf accepted it, and Dr. Milvis's neural pattern appeared on his screen. "Commander, I've been monitoring your feeds," the Cerebrant said. "I need to update my report. This behavior we're witnessing goes beyond simple pack bonding. Humans appear to have a psychological need to care for other creatures, even creatures that could harm them, especially creatures that could harm them." "Why?" Zilf asked. "What possible evolutionary advantage could that provide?" "I'm not certain it provides an advantage," Dr. Milvis admitted. "It may simply be a side effect of the traits that do provide advantages. Their ability to form complex social bonds, their tendency to see patterns and assign meaning, their capacity for empathy across species boundaries. These traits make humans excellent at cooperation, at building societies, at working together toward common goals. But the side effect is that they try to befriend everything," Zilf finished. "Precisely. And in doing so, they transform potential threats into allies. That tiger cub will remember this. When it's fully grown, weighing 300 kilograms with teeth that can crush bone, it will remember the human who saved it, protected it, cared for it." Zilf thought about that. A fully grown tiger, loyal to humans, willing to defend them. It was a terrifying prospect for any species that might one day encounter humanity among the stars. "Doctor, what happens when humans reach space?" Zilf asked quietly. "When they encounter the galaxy's real predators, species with weapons and fleets and the ability to destroy planets." There was a long pause. When Dr. Milvis responded, there was something in the neural pattern that suggested what humans might call concern. "I suspect, Commander, that they will try to befriend them too." And considering what we've witnessed, we cannot rule out the possibility that they might succeed. 3 weeks passed, and the observation station's routine had fundamentally changed. What began as standard documentation of a death world's ecosystem had transformed into an intensive study of human behavior. Zilf had requested additional personnel from the Galactic Research Council, and his team had expanded to include specialists in xenopsychology, behavioral prediction, and threat assessment. The tiger cub, which the humans called Raja according to their audio transmissions, had made a full recovery. The predator no longer limped, and its playful energy had returned completely. But something else had changed. The tiger now spent more time in the human settlement than in the forest. It had essentially moved in. Zilf watched the morning feed, showing Raja sleeping on the porch of the human male structure. The human, whose name they had learned was Marcus, sat nearby working on some kind of mechanical device. The scene was so domestic, so peaceful, that it was easy to forget one participant was an apex predator capable of killing the other in seconds. "Commander, you need to see this," KRRN called from her station. Her scales flickered with patterns Zilf had learned to recognize as scientific excitement mixed with disbelief. "I've been analyzing human settlements across the planet. What we're seeing here isn't isolated. It's everywhere. The main display filled with data points scattered across Terra's continents. Red markers indicated documented cases of humans forming bonds with dangerous predators. Thousands of markers, tens of thousands. In every climate zone, every geographical region, humans had established relationships with creatures that should have been killing them. "Show me examples," Zilf ordered. The screen cycled through dozens of observations. A human child sleeping against a massive dog-like creature that analysis identified as a wolf hybrid. Humans riding on the backs of massive beasts called horses, prey animals domesticated so thoroughly they worked in partnership with their former predators. Humans swimming with dolphins, creatures that could easily drown them, but instead protected them from sharks. More extreme cases appeared. A human family living alongside bears. Humans handling deadly snakes with casual familiarity. A human female who had raised a leopard cub that now hunted alongside her, bringing its kills back to share. "The domestication data is particularly interesting," said Dr. Yenix, a new addition to the team. The hyphae was a fungal intelligence, its consciousness distributed across a network of connected nodes inside an environmental suit. Humans have domesticated hundreds of species. They took wolves, apex predators that competed with humans for prey, and turned them into dogs. Loyal companions that guard human homes and children. "How long did this domestication process take?" asked Zilf. "Approximately 30,000 solar cycles," Dr. Yenix replied. "But that's just the beginning. They domesticated cats, small predators that hunt rodents. Horses for transportation, cattle for food and labor, birds for eggs and meat, fish in enclosed waters. They've even begun domesticating insects for pollination services." The Threat officer's eye stalks waved in agitation. They turned their entire ecosystem into servants and companions. That's not survival. That's domination. They didn't adapt to their environment. They adapted their environment to themselves. And they did it through friendship, KRRN added. Not conquest. The animals cooperate because humans formed bonds with them, fed them, protected them, provided value that made partnership more attractive than competition. Zilf considered the implications. The galactic community had protocols for dealing with aggressive species. Military might could counter military might. But what protocol existed for a species that won loyalty through emotional bonds, that turned enemies into allies through persistent kindness backed by carefully calibrated shows of strength? Movement on the primary screen caught his attention. Marcus had stood up from his work, looking toward the forest. Zilf enhanced the audio, picking up sounds that human ears likely couldn't detect yet. Something was approaching. Something large. Raj's head lifted from sleep. The tiger's ears swiveled forward, and a low rumble emerged from its throat. Not quite a growl, more of a warning. Marcus placed a hand on the tiger's head, a calming gesture then walked toward the forest edge. "What's he doing?" the Plink officer asked. Every predatory instinct should be telling him to retreat to shelter. "He's investigating," Zilf said. "Humans are curious. Dangerously so." The thermal imaging revealed what was approaching before it emerged from the trees. Another tiger. Adult. Massive. The computer estimated its weight at 260 kilograms. A prime male, fully grown, with muscle and power that made even the observers in orbit feel fear response. Marcus stopped at the clearing's edge. He didn't retreat, but he didn't advance either. Raja moved to stand beside him, positioning itself between the human and the approaching adult tiger. The cub was making sounds, vocalizations that the computer struggled to interpret. Communication. Raja was talking to the larger tiger. "That's Raja's sire," Dr. Yinnick said, pulling up genetic analysis. The DNA markers indicate parental relationship. The adult male is the cub's father. The massive tiger emerged from the forest shadows. Its orange and black stripes rippled over muscles that could drag prey weighing twice its own mass. Its eyes, amber and intense, fixed on Marcus with the focused attention of a predator assessing prey. Every being on the observation deck held their breath, or the equivalent for their species. This was the moment. The adult tiger wouldn't have the bond Raja had formed with the human. It would see only prey. Soft, vulnerable, easily killed prey. Marcus did something that made Zilpha's crystal skin flash with alarm. He lowered himself into a crouch, making himself smaller, less threatening. Not submission, exactly, but a reduction of perceived danger. He extended one hand, palm up, fingers relaxed. The adult tiger took a step closer. Then another. Raja remained between them, but had stopped making warning sounds. The cub's body language had shifted from protective to something else. Facilitative. As if the cub was introducing its father to its friend. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Yinnick said. Cross-generational predator introduction facilitated by a juvenile. The behavioral complexity here suggests cognitive processes we haven't documented in non-sentient species. The adult tiger was close enough now to strike. One lunge would close the distance. Marcus remained still, hand extended, meeting the predator's gaze without challenging it, showing respect without showing fear. The tiger lowered its massive head and sniffed Marcus's hand. Its nose, wet and large enough to cover the human's palm, investigated the scent, processing information, making decisions that would determine if Marcus lived or died in the next seconds. Then, the tiger did something that made several observers gasp. It rubbed its head against Marcus's hand. The gesture was unmistakable. Acceptance. The same greeting behavior it would show to another tiger it considered part of its social group. Marcus slowly, carefully, moved his hand to stroke the tiger's head. The predator allowed it, even leaning into the touch. Raja made a pleased sound and rubbed against both the human and its father, completing the connection. "He just befriended an adult apex predator," KRRN said, her voice barely above a whisper. "In under 5 minutes. No weapons, no threats, just patience and the right body language." Marcus stood slowly, and the adult tiger didn't react aggressively. Instead, it turned its attention to Raja, sniffing the cub thoroughly, checking its offspring's condition. When it found the healed wound on Raja's leg, the tiger looked back at Marcus with what could only be described as understanding. The predator knew its cub had been injured, could smell the medical treatments Marcus had used, could see the cub was healthy and well-fed. The tiger was intelligent enough to make the connection between the human and the cub's recovery. Marcus reached into his pocket and produced meat, the dried kind he often gave to Raja. He offered a piece to the adult tiger. The predator accepted it carefully, consuming the food while watching the human with those intense amber eyes. Over the next hour, the observation team watched as Marcus slowly built rapport with the adult tiger. He sat down, and both tigers settled near him. He talked to them in his language, the tone friendly and calm. He stroked their fur, and they allowed it. At one point, Marcus lay back in the grass, and the adult tiger moved closer, its massive body a wall of muscle and fur beside the fragile human. The adult tiger is displaying protective behavior, Dr. Yenix noted. It's accepted the human as part of its social unit. Marcus isn't prey. He's family. How? The Thren demanded. How does he do this? What's the mechanism? There must be pheromones, chemical signals, something we're missing. It's simpler than that, Zilf said slowly, understanding crystallizing in his mind. It's empathy. Real, genuine emotional connection. Humans have the ability to understand what another being is feeling and respond to it appropriately. They read body language with instinctive accuracy. They know when to be calm and when to show strength, when to give space and when to offer comfort. But they're doing this with non-sentient creatures, the Plink protested. These tigers lack higher cognitive functions. They're operating on instinct. Are they? Zilf countered. We classify them as non-sentient because they don't have technology or language as we define it. But they clearly have complex social structures, emotional responses, decision-making capabilities. Perhaps the humans see something in them that we've missed. Perhaps they're right to treat them as intelligent beings deserving of respect. The afternoon passed with the human and both tigers resting companionably. Other settlement members came to see, maintaining respectful distances. Marcus spoke to them, gesturing at the adult tiger. The observers could see the human explaining something, reassuring his community. As evening approached, the adult tiger rose and stretched. Raja stood as well, moving to its father's side. For a moment, Zilf thought both tigers would leave together, and Marcus would lose the companion he'd bonded with so thoroughly. But Raja looked between its father and Marcus, clearly conflicted. The adult tiger made a rumbling sound, touched his nose to the cub's head, then turned to Marcus. Another head rub, this time a farewell. Then, the massive predator padded into the forest, leaving Raja behind. The father gave permission, KRRN said wonderingly. He approved of the cub staying with the human. Marcus watched until the adult tiger disappeared, then looked down at Raja. He said something in his language, his tone warm, and the cub pushed its head against his hip. Together, they walked back to the structure as darkness fell. Zilf called a meeting of his expanded team. Xenopsychologists, behavioral experts, threat assessors, and military liaisons from the Galactic Council gathered in the conference chamber. We need to address what we're observing, Zilf began. The humans' ability to form bonds with their planet's predators isn't an anomaly. It's a fundamental aspect of their species. When they reach space, they will attempt to form these same bonds with alien species. That could be advantageous, suggested a Cerebran analyst. Imagine if humans could establish peaceful relations with aggressive species that currently threaten galactic stability. Or imagine if they form alliances with our enemies, countered a military liaison from the Vex hegemony. Humans could destabilize the entire balance of power in the galaxy. We're missing the critical question, Dr. Yenix said. Should we make contact with humanity? They're primitive by our standards, but their emotional intelligence is clearly advanced. First contact protocols recommend waiting until a species develops faster than light travel, but humans present a unique situation. Early contact could be catastrophic, argued the Thren representative. We could accidentally expose them to diseases, technologies they're not ready for, philosophical concepts that could destabilize their society. But delayed contact could be worse, Zilf said. If humans reach space on their own and encounter hostile species before we can establish diplomatic relations, they might categorize all aliens as threats. Or worse, they might ally with the wrong factions. The debate continued for hours, with no clear consensus. Finally, Zilf made a decision that he knew would be controversial. I'm recommending to the Council that we initiate preliminary contact protocols. Not full disclosure. Not yet. But we need to start preparing humanity for the reality of alien life. Perhaps through subtle signs, transmissions they can intercept, evidence that makes them question if they're alone. That violates the non-interference directive, the Vex liaison objected. The directive was written for typical species, Zilf replied. Humanity is anything but typical. We've spent months watching them befriend apex predators, form emotional bonds across species barriers, show empathy to creatures that could kill them. When they discover alien life exists, their first instinct won't be fear or aggression. It will be curiosity. The question is, will we be the first aliens they meet, or will we leave that a species with less benevolent intentions? The question hung in the air as the meeting adjourned. Zilf returned to the observation deck to watch the night feed from Terra. In the darkness below, Marcus's structure glowed with warm light. Through the window, enhanced imaging showed the human reading something, a primitive book made of paper. Raja slept on a soft surface nearby, chest rising and falling peacefully. It was such a simple scene. A human and a tiger, prey and predator, sharing space in trust and companionship. But Zilf knew he was looking at something more significant than a simple friendship. He was looking at the future of galactic relations, for better or worse. Because when humanity reached the stars, they would bring this same capacity for connection with them, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Zilf's proposal to the Galactic Council took 6 weeks to receive a response. During that time, the observation team continued documenting the relationship between Marcus and Raja, but their mission had expanded beyond simple behavioral study. They were now actively monitoring multiple human settlements across Terra, building a comprehensive database of human-animal interactions. What they found both fascinated and terrified the council members reviewing their reports. In the frozen northern regions, humans lived alongside massive white bears that weighed over half a ton. These bears, called polar bears by humans, were among the most dangerous predators on the planet. Yet human researchers approached them with calm confidence, studying them, protecting them, even rescuing injured bears and nursing them back to health. In the ocean, humans swam with creatures called orcas, massive marine predators that hunted in coordinated packs and could easily kill a human with a single bite. Instead of attacking, the orcas played with the humans, allowing them to touch their skin, even protecting them from other ocean predators. In the jungles, humans established sanctuaries for creatures called primates, close genetic relatives who possessed enough strength to tear a human apart. Yet these primates learned to trust humans, accepted food from their hands, and displayed obvious affection toward their human caretakers. The pattern repeated across every environment. Humans didn't dominate through force. They didn't separate themselves from nature behind walls and weapons. They integrated. They formed connections. They turned potential threats into partners through a combination of respect, patience, and genuine emotional investment. Dr. Milvis had updated the psychological profile 3 times, each iteration revealing new layers to human behavior. The latest report sat on Zilf's console, its conclusions more disturbing than comforting. Humans possess what we might call aggressive empathy, the report stated. They don't simply feel what others feel. They actively work to understand perspectives different from their own. This extends across species boundaries in ways we've never observed. More significantly, humans become deeply upset when they witness suffering, even in creatures that pose no benefit to them. They will expend enormous resources to alleviate pain in other beings, sometimes at great personal cost. Zilf read through case studies included in the report. Humans rescuing animals from natural disasters. Humans creating medical treatments for wildlife diseases. Humans establishing massive protected zones where endangered species could live without threat. The scale of effort was staggering. But what truly caught his attention was a section on human behavior toward other humans. Despite their capacity for empathy, humans also displayed remarkable aggression toward their own species. Wars, conflicts, violence on scales that devastated populations. Yet even in conflict, humans showed mercy to enemies who surrendered, established rules of warfare to minimize suffering, and created international organizations dedicated to peace. They're contradictory, Zilf said aloud, though no one else was in his office. capable of extreme violence and extreme compassion simultaneously. His console chimed with an incoming priority transmission. The seal of the Galactic Council appeared, indicating the message came from the highest authority in known space. Zilf accepted it, and the holographic image of Council Speaker Vorn materialized above his desk. Vorn was an ancient, one of the eldest species in the galaxy. His race had been exploring space for over 50,000 years, and his personal age exceeded 3,000. His wisdom was legendary, as was his caution. Commander Zilf, Vorn's voice carried the weight of ages. Your proposal has been reviewed by the full council. We have studied your reports extensively. The consensus is troubling. Troubling how, Speaker? Zilf asked. The council cannot agree on whether humanity represents the greatest hope or the greatest threat the galaxy has ever encountered, Vorn explained. Your evidence of their empathic capabilities is compelling. Their ability to form bonds across species barriers could revolutionize galactic diplomacy. But that same evidence reveals a species with unpredictable emotional responses and a tendency towards self-sacrifice that defies rational calculation. Self-sacrifice. Zilf hadn't included that in his reports specifically, though he'd observed it repeatedly. Your data shows humans risking death to save animals, entering burning structures to rescue pets, jumping into dangerous waters to save drowning creatures, standing between predators and potential prey. This behavior is illogical. The risk vastly outweighs any possible benefit. Yet humans do it consistently. Zilf thought about Marcus facing down the wolf pack to save Raja. The human had no logical reason to risk his life for a tiger cub. Yet he'd done it without hesitation. Perhaps it's not illogical, Speaker, Zilf said carefully. Perhaps humans operate on a different calculation of benefit. They don't measure value solely in survival probability. They measure it in emotional bonds, relationships, connections that matter to them regardless of practical outcomes. Vorn's image flickered with what might have been the ancient equivalent of a frown. That is precisely what concerns the Council. A species that makes decisions based on emotion rather than logic is unpredictable, dangerous. We cannot model their behavior reliably. But, Speaker, isn't that what makes them valuable? Zilf argued. Most species in the galaxy think similarly. We calculate. We analyze. We make predictable choices. Humans break those patterns. They find solutions we wouldn't consider because we're too logical to attempt them. Or they create disasters we never anticipated because they act on feelings instead of facts, Vorn countered. The Council has reviewed historical data on other emotional species. The results are mixed at best. For every breakthrough achieved through emotional thinking, there are catastrophes caused by emotional decisions. Zilf waited, knowing Vorn wasn't finished. However, the ancient continued. We cannot ignore the potential benefits of contact with humanity. Their empathic abilities could help us negotiate with species currently hostile to the galactic community. Their pack-bonding tendencies might allow them to form diplomatic bridges we cannot. The Council has therefore decided on a compromise. What kind of compromise? Limited observation will continue. You will monitor human development closely, but you're also authorized to conduct a test, a controlled interaction to assess how humans respond to alien life. Zilfa's crystal skin flickered with surprise. You want to make contact? Directly? Not direct contact. Not yet. We want to observe how humans react to undeniable evidence of alien existence. Your team will arrange for humans to intercept one of our communication satellites. Make it appear to be an accident, a malfunction that causes the satellite to drift into their detection range. Include information that clearly indicates alien origin, but nothing that poses a security risk. And then, we watch how they respond. Zilf understood. Precisely. If humans react with aggression, weapons development, paranoia, we will know they're not ready for contact. But if they react with curiosity, attempts at communication, peaceful intentions, then we can consider more direct engagement. It was a reasonable compromise, Zilf supposed. Still cautious, but allowing for the possibility that humans might be ready for the larger galaxy sooner than traditional protocols would permit. "I'll begin preparations immediately," Zilf said. "One more thing, Commander." Vorn's expression became more serious. "If humans fail this test, if they demonstrate hostility toward the prospect of alien life, the Council has authorized more aggressive containment protocols. We will quarantine their solar system, prevent them from developing faster-than-light technology. Humanity will remain confined to their world indefinitely." The weight of that statement settled over Zilf like a physical burden. His observations, his reports, his recommendations could determine the future of an entire species. If he misjudged human nature, if he was wrong about their capacity for peaceful coexistence, humanity might never reach the stars. "Understood, Speaker. I won't fail." Vorn's image dissipated, leaving Zilf alone with the enormous responsibility that had just been placed on his shoulders. He pulled up the live feed from Marcus's settlement, seeking some reassurance in what he'd observed over the past months. The scene showed Marcus and Raja walking through the forest together. The tiger had grown considerably, now weighing over 120 kilograms. Yet despite the predator's increasing size and power, its behavior toward Marcus remained gentle, playful, affectionate. As Zilf watched, they encountered another human on the path. A young female, perhaps in her late adolescence. She carried a basket of gathered plants. When she saw Raja, her reaction wasn't fear. She smiled. Marcus and the girl spoke briefly. Then, the girl extended her hand toward Raja, moving slowly, respectfully. The tiger sniffed her hand, then rubbed its head against her palm. The girl laughed with delight, stroking the massive predator's fur. "They're teaching each other," Zilf realized. Marcus isn't the only human forming bonds with Raja. He's introducing others, showing them how to interact safely, building a bridge between species one connection at a time. KRRN entered his office, her scales bright with urgency. "Commander, we have a situation. A human hunting party has killed a tiger. Not Raja or its sire, but another adult. They transported the body to the nearest urban center." Zilf felt his temperature spike. This was it. The darker side of humanity he'd been dreading. They'd killed a tiger. Proof that humans were still predators themselves, willing to destroy what they claimed to value. "Show me," he ordered. The screens displayed footage from the human urban center. A crowd had gathered around the dead tiger. But the crowd's mood wasn't celebratory. People looked angry, upset. They were shouting at the hunters who had killed the predator. "What were they saying?" Zilf asked. The translator processed the audio, filtering through multiple speakers. "Murderers. Monster killers. How could you? It was protected. You'll go to prison. Justice for the tiger." Zilf realized his mistake. The humans weren't celebrating the kill. They were condemning it. More footage revealed the context. The hunters had killed the tiger illegally. It was a protected species, and hunting them was forbidden under human law. Law enforcement officials were already arresting the hunters. The crowd was demanding severe punishment. "They protect them through law," Dr. Yinix said, having followed KRRN into the office. "Not just social pressure, actual legal consequences for killing endangered predators. They've built institutional structures to preserve species they consider valuable." The scene shifted to show the dead tiger being transported to a facility the computer identified as a wildlife research center. Human scientists examined the body with obvious sadness and anger. They were documenting the illegal kill, gathering evidence for prosecution. "They mourn it," KRRN said softly. "Look at their faces. They're genuinely upset by this animal's death." Zilf watched human after human stop to look at the tiger's body. Some cried. Others stood in silent respect. Children asked their parents why someone would hurt such a beautiful creature. The parents struggled to explain, their own emotions clearly conflicted. This wasn't the behavior of a species that saw tigers as threats or resources. This was the behavior of a species that saw them as treasures, as beings worthy of protection and respect, as friends. "Begin preparation for the satellite test," Zilf ordered. "But also expand our observation protocols. I want to document human reactions to threats, not just to animals. How do they respond when other humans are in danger? How do they handle disasters? I need a complete picture before we proceed. Over the following weeks, the team compiled footage of human emergency responses, disasters both natural and human-made. The results were remarkably consistent. When earthquakes struck, humans rushed to help each other. Strangers pulled strangers from rubble. They shared food and shelter. They donated resources to people they'd never met. When floods threatened communities, humans formed rescue chains. They risked their own lives to save others, including pets and livestock. They showed the same self-sacrificing behavior toward humans as they did toward animals. When fires burned forests, humans fought to contain them, risking smoke inhalation and burns. They saved animals fleeing the flames. They mourned the loss of trees as if grieving for friends. They care about everything, the Thran officer observed. Their empathy isn't selective. It extends to their own species, to animals, even to plants and ecosystems. They feel responsible for their entire world. That explains their environmental protection efforts, Dr. Yenix added. We initially thought those were practical measures to preserve resources. But it's deeper than that. Humans feel emotional distress when their environment is damaged. They experience guilt when their actions harm other species. Zilf assembled all the data into a comprehensive report for the Council. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were aggressive when threatened, yes. Capable of violence, certainly. But their default response to the world around them was connection, protection, care. They're ready, Zilf told his team. Or as ready as any species can be. They won't respond perfectly to learning about alien life. They'll be scared, confused. Some will react with hostility. But the majority, I believe, will react with curiosity, with hope, with that same impulse that makes them befriend tigers and save drowning animals. What if you're wrong? KRRN asked quietly. Zil thought about Marcus and Raja, about a human who heard a predator in distress and ran toward danger instead of away from it, about a species that wrote laws to protect creatures that could kill them, about people who mourn dead animals with genuine grief. I don't think I am, he said. Initiate the satellite deployment. Let's see how humanity responds to learning they're not alone in the universe. The satellite was a marvel of engineering designed to appear simple. It contained technology centuries beyond human capability, but its exterior mimicked their own space exploration aesthetics. Solar panels that were actually advanced energy collectors. Communication arrays that could transmit across light years, disguised as ordinary antennae. And, most importantly, a data core filled with carefully curated information about the galactic community. Zilf watched the deployment team make final adjustments. The satellite would drift into Earth detection range within 48 hours. It would emit signals strong enough to attract attention, but not so strong as to appear threatening. The data it contained was designed to be discoverable through human mathematics and logic, a puzzle that would take weeks to fully decode, but would clearly indicate intelligent alien origin. The projection models suggest the humans will detect the satellite within 72 hours of it entering their scanning range, KRRN reported. Their various space agencies monitor for unknown objects. They'll find it. And then the real test begins, Zilf said. Dr. Milvis, are your monitoring systems ready? The Cerebrin's neural pattern pulsed acknowledgement. We'll be tracking human communications globally. News broadcasts, military channels, scientific networks, even their public internet systems. We'll see their reactions in real time. What about containment? Asked the military liaison from the Vexagemini. If humans respond aggressively, if they attempt to weaponize the satellite or use the information to accelerate their military technology, what's our protocol? We retrieve the satellite immediately and activate quarantine protocols, Zilf replied. But I don't believe it will come to that. Your belief isn't evidence, the Vex officer said sharply. We're gambling with galactic security based on your observations of one human and one domesticated predator. It's not just one human, Zilf countered. We've documented thousands of interactions across their entire planet. The pattern is consistent. Humans seek connection before conflict. We'll know soon enough. Dr. Yinix interjected diplomatically. The satellite launches in 10 minutes. They watched on the main display as the deployment vessel released the satellite. It drifted away from the ship, its trajectory calculated to bring it into Earth's orbital path naturally, as if it had been caught by the planet's gravity. To any observer, it would appear to be an artificial object of unknown origin that had somehow wandered into their solar system. The satellite's systems activated, beginning their broadcast of harmless greeting protocols and basic mathematical concepts. The message was clear to anyone with the technology to receive it. We exist, we are intelligent, and we wish to communicate. Now they waited. On the surface below, life continued normally. Marcus was building something in his yard, a larger shelter of some kind. Raja, now weighing nearly 150 kilograms, lounged in the shade nearby. The tiger had become a fixture in the settlement, known to all the residents. Children played near it, though their parents maintained cautious supervision. Other adults brought it food offerings, seeking to build their own bonds with the magnificent predator. The cub won't be a cub much longer, KRRN observed. In another few months, it will be fully grown, 270 kilograms or more, capable of killing a human with a single strike. But it won't, Zilf said with certainty. We've watched the bond strengthen over months. Raja doesn't see humans as prey. It sees them as family, pack members. That won't change as it grows, unless instinct overrides learned behavior, the Vex liaison cautioned. Predatory instinct is powerful. One moment of aggression, one accidental injury, and the entire relationship could collapse. As if to contradict that concern, the feed showed a young human child, perhaps 5 years old, approaching Raja with a ball. The child threw the ball, and the massive tiger bounded after it with playful enthusiasm. The predator returned with the ball in its mouth, dropping at the child's feet, tail swishing with happiness. The child laughed and threw again. That child trusts the tiger completely, Dr. Yinix noted. No fear. No hositashchen. The parents are watching, but they're not intervening. They trust their community members' judgment. Marcus taught them that, Zilf said. He showed them how to interact safely. Built confidence through demonstration and patience. That's the human gift. They don't just form bonds themselves. They teach others how to form them too. The first alert came 36 hours after satellite deployment. A human space monitoring facility had detected the object. Communication channels lit up as human scientists began analyzing the signals it emitted. They're excited, Dr. Milvis reported, monitoring the chatter. Not alarmed, not preparing weapons. They're calling other observatories, sharing data, trying to determine what they've found. The next 12 hours were a cascade of human activity. More facilities detected the satellite. Social media platforms exploded with speculation. News organizations broadcast stories about the mysterious object. The term trending worldwide was not danger or threat, but first contact. They're hoping it's alien, KRRN said, reading the translated communications. Listen to their discussions. They want it to be from another civilization. They're excited about the possibility. Zilf listened to the audio feeds, the universal translator rendering thousands of human voices into comprehensible language. Scientists speculated about the satellite's origin. Media personalities debated what it might mean for humanity. Citizens posted messages expressing hope, fear, curiosity, and wonder. The overwhelming tone wasn't panic. It was anticipation. They've been preparing for this their entire cultural existence, Dr. Yinix observed. Human fiction is filled with stories about alien contact. They've imagined this scenario countless times. It's not entirely unexpected to them. But fiction and reality are different, the Vex liaison argued. When confronted with actual evidence, humans might revert to fear-based responses. The world's major space agencies held a joint press conference 3 days after the satellite's detection. Representatives from different nations stood together, presenting their findings to a global audience. The data showed clearly that the satellite was artificial, far too advanced to be human-made, and transmitting complex mathematical patterns. "We have confirmed that this object is not of Earth origin," said a human female scientist, her voice carrying both gravity and excitement. "The technology it displays is beyond our current capabilities. The signals it emits follow patterns that suggest intelligent design. While we cannot yet say definitively that this is an alien artifact, all evidence points to that conclusion." The press conference continued with questions from human journalists. Would there be a response transmitted? Was the satellite dangerous? What did this mean for humanity's future? The answers were measured, careful, but hopeful. Plans were being made to study the satellite extensively. International cooperation would be essential. This was potentially the most important discovery in human history. "Look at them," Zilf said to his team. "They're not mobilizing militaries. They're forming research teams. Collaboration between nations. They're treating this as an opportunity, not a threat." "Some humans are responding with fear," KRRN noted, filtering through the global communications. "Religious groups claiming this is a sign of end times. Conspiracy theorists warning of invasion. Fringe elements calling for military action. But they're the minority," Dr. Yenix countered. "The majority of human responses are curious, eager. They want to learn more, want to communicate, want to understand." Over the following days, human scientists worked to decode the information in the satellite's transmissions. They approached it like a puzzle, using mathematics as a common language. The data had been designed to be discoverable in stages, each revelation leading to the next, building a picture of the galactic community without overwhelming the recipients. The first decoded message was simple: a star map showing Earth's location in relation to other inhabited worlds. The nearest civilizations, the size of known space. The humans were not alone, and they were not the first. The reaction to this revelation spread across the planet within hours. News channels broadcast the star map continuously. Scientists held impromptu celebrations. Social media filled with messages of excitement and wonder. "We're not alone" became the most repeated phrase in human communications. Not said with fear, but with joy, with relief. With the excitement of a social species discovering their community was far larger than they'd imagined. "They're reacting like they've been invited to join a neighborhood," the Thran officer observed. "Not like they've learned of potential threats, but like they've discovered potential friends." The second decoded message contained basic information about the galactic community. How many species? How long they've been exploring space? The fundamental principles of cooperation and peaceful coexistence that governed interspecies relations. Human responses to this information were telling. Governments began discussing how Earth might fit into such a community. Scientists drafted proposals for peaceful contact protocols. Philosophers debated the implications for human identity and purpose. And on the surface below, in Marcus's settlement, life continued much as it had. The tiger still played with children. The human still cared for his predator companion. The bond between species remained strong. A small-scale demonstration of the same principles humanity was now contemplating on a galactic level. Zilf assembled his final report for the Council. The evidence was comprehensive. Humanity had passed the test. Their response to undeniable proof of alien life was exactly what he'd hoped for: curiosity, cooperation, and a desire for peaceful contact. But before he could transmit the report, alarms sounded throughout the station. Multiple hostile vessels had entered the solar system, emerging from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. The computer identified them immediately: Zalcor raiders. The Zalcor were the nightmare species of the galaxy. Pirates, slavers, and destroyers of civilizations. They attacked pre-contact worlds, stripping them of resources and taking populations as slave labor. They had no regard for galactic law, no interest in peaceful coexistence. They were predators in the truest sense, and Earth had just attracted their attention with the satellite's broadcasts. How many ships? Zilf demanded. 3 attack cruisers, KRRN reported, her scales flashing panic colors. They're heading directly for Earth. Estimated arrival in 40 hours. Can we stop them? The research station has no weapons. By the time we summon military support from the Council, the Zal Corps will have already reached the planet. Commander, we have to warn the humans. Zilpha's mind raced. 40 hours until hostile aliens reached Earth. A species that had just learned of alien existence and was unprepared for warfare. The Zal Corps would devastate their cities, capture their population, destroy everything humanity had built. This is my fault, Zilph said quietly. The satellite attracted them. I brought this threat to their world. Commander, we need to decide, Dr. Yenix urged. Do we warn them? Do we violate every non-interference protocol and give them advanced knowledge? Or do we maintain protocols and watch them be destroyed? Zilph looked at the display, showing Marcus and Raja. The human was lying in the grass, the massive tiger stretched out beside him, both peaceful in the afternoon sun. A perfect symbol of connection between species, of trust, of friendship. He couldn't let that be destroyed. Prepare a transmission, Zilph ordered. Direct to every major human communication network. Tell them everything. Who we are, why we're here, and what's coming for them. The Council will revoke your command, the Vex liaison warned. Then they can revoke it, Zilph replied. But I won't stand by and watch humanity die because of our protocols. They deserve a chance to defend themselves. They deserve the truth. The transmission was prepared and sent. On Earth, every screen, every radio, every communication device capable of receiving the signal suddenly displayed the same message. Zilpha's image appeared, his crystalline form strange and alien, but his words clear through the universal translator. People of Earth, my name is Commander Zilph of the Galactic Research Council. We have been observing your world for many months. The satellite you discovered was placed by us to test your readiness for contact with alien civilizations. You passed that test. Your response showed curiosity, cooperation, and peaceful intent. Across the planet, humans stopped what they were doing to watch. Traffic halted. Conversations ceased. Billions of eyes focused on the alien commander's message. However, our transmission has attracted the attention of a hostile species. The Zal Corps are raiders who destroy civilizations and enslave populations. 3 of their warships are approaching your world. They will arrive in approximately 40 hours. You are not technologically equipped to defend against them. Panic began to ripple through human populations. This was the nightmare scenario. First contact with hostile intent. But you are not defenseless, Zilph continued. You have something the Zal Corps do not understand. Something we have been studying for months. You have the ability to form bonds across impossible boundaries, to turn enemies into allies through empathy and understanding. The Zal Corps are predators, but you have spent millennia learning to live alongside predators. You know how to read them, understand them, find common ground. The transmission included everything. Data on the Zal Corps, their tactics, their weaknesses, their social structure, and finally, the key insight from months of observation. You befriend tigers not through weakness, but through understanding backed by strength. You show respect without showing fear. You offer value while maintaining boundaries. The Zal Corps understand only force, but they also understand value. Show them you are worth more as allies than as slaves. Show them what humanity does best. Make them part of your pack. The transmission ended, and chaos erupted across Earth. But within the chaos, patterns emerged. Governments began coordinating. Scientists analyzed the data on Zal Corps technology. Military forces positioned themselves not for direct combat, which they'd lose, but for strategic positioning. And on the internet, in the social spaces where humans connected globally, a message began spreading. Not a message of fear or desperation, but of determination. If we can befriend tigers, we can handle 3 pirate ships. Let's show them what humanity does best. In Marcus's settlement, the human stood in his yard looking up at the sky. Raja stood beside him, sensing his tension. Marcus placed a hand on the tiger's massive head, drawing comfort from the predator's presence. "We've got company coming," Marcus said to the tiger. "The dangerous kind. Time to show them how we make friends." Roger rumbled, the sound protective and confident. Together, human and tiger stood ready for whatever was coming. And, watching from orbit, Zilf realized something profound. He hadn't doomed humanity by attracting the Zalcor. He'd given them exactly what they needed, a challenge. Because humans didn't just befriend predators in peaceful times. They were at their best when facing impossible odds, when protecting those they cared about, when standing between danger and their community. The Zalcor had no idea what they were about to encounter. They thought they were hunting prey. They were about to meet Earth's apex predators. And humanity, Zilf knew, was ready to show the galaxy exactly what that meant.